Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We're Global Village. The past few weeks we've been talking to local professors and decision makers about climate change and how we should be responding to climate change. And Jordan, why don't you start us off? Where did the name Global Village come from?
Well, Laura, Global Village came from something that Dr. Davis said when I was speaking with her.
Mm-hmm.
She said, I think that climate change is one thing that's made the world a village. And I mean, that really resonated with me because that's why I think climate change is such an urgent issue, because it does affect the entire world. But also I think that's one of the reasons why it makes it so hard to act, because people are, unsure where to start if it's such a global issue. And I think that's one thing that we wanted to attack with this project is, solving climate change, but also, starting right here at MSU, what can we do?
So, Katie, who did you talk to these past few weeks?
I talked to Dr. Udpa. He's the Executive Vice President for Administrative Services and the former Dean of the College of Engineering. He really doesn't have a lot of background knowledge on climate change, and he honestly doesn't even consider it for sure a man-made problem, but he does know it is a problem. He worries about not making a difference, but he doesn't really know if the things he's doing are making a difference.
I think that's something that came up a lot is, when addressing climate change, it's if I do this action, will it make an impact?
Right.
That's something that I think hinders a lot of people from taking action because they don't think it'll make an impact, or the impact it makes won't be economically convenient.
Yeah, cost came up a lot, especially when talking to administrators.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most of the administrators I spoke with they were really concerned with costs and that the school is still a business and everything, and having to recognize the university as a business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think those are concerns that are maybe more real for administrators because they're the ones looking at those things. But definitely when I was talking with Dr. Davis and Dr. Joshi, they both were very aware of those sides of things as well, and saying the energy transition plan is good, and some of them are kind of hesitant to say that it was good, just because it's people know that it's not making a huge impact on climate change, but that's also just looking at the school in itself. It's not making a huge impact on climate change because it's just one small speck of energy consumption. But then when you look at where the university can really make a difference is in the research and education sector, is what people were saying, especially Dr. Joshi. But I think it's important still to see that if the university were to transition to 100% clean energy, it kind of paves the way for other places to do the same. And that's something that Linda Boomer in the physical plant was saying, I would love to see the university on 100% renewable energy, and she was saying that she thinks that our plan is going to show people how they can actually do it, as opposed to some other schools' plans that she thinks maybe too ambitious and they won't be able to meet their goals. At the same time, she's talking about reliability being the number one concern because of the research and education that takes place here. We can't sacrifice that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even Dr. McGrath was saying something like that as well. We do really well with research and education, and in a way, as a research institution and as an institution of higher education, we have a moral obligation to take action on the things that we're learning about. So
something that Dr. Davis said as well about chasing ice. Chasing ice really hit me because when people make so much sacrifice to find the information, it's almost a sin, an unethical force to ignore it.
When I talked to Wolfgang Bauer, he is in the Department of Physics. He has his office in the administration building, but he would not identify himself as part of the administration. He was saying on a scale of 1 to 10 that climate change is 11, and when I asked him if he wanted to elaborate some more, he said 12. So he thinks it's extremely important, and that scientific evidence, purely scientific evidence, should be driving the decisions we're making. And yeah, he does express some frustration with the fact that we aren't moving to 100% clean energy quicker, but also knows that the administration deals with having to be like financially responsible or and not making it so that tuition has to go up a bunch.
Dr. O'Shea was saying with the trusting, like willingness to trust scientists when they say climate change is real and caused by humans, and also the willpower to say that we have to do something about it and actually follow through with it.
We need basically all hands on deck was kind of like the final thing. Dr. Davis said everybody needs to do something. I think it can be done from the ground up, starting in communities, starting in schools. Children will tell their parents. We just need to start. So it's like we can't wait for like a global government necessarily to do that, even if that would be like the most effective thing. We all need to like be taking action. But I guess like that's also problematic if it's like everyone's responsibility to like figure out like how can everyone like contribute to the solution.
From your interviews, what did you think? What did a lot of people think about MSU's response to climate change, or what did the people you spoke with think about the energy transition plan? Was it aggressive enough to address climate change?
Well, Dr. Udpa, I don't remember if he actually talked about the energy transition plan itself, but he believes that switching to a completely gas-fired plant is the answer. But he did acknowledge the fact that in our class we had talked about all the different sustainable energy sources and that they're definitely an option for our campus, but that there's no one silver bullet, so it would have to be a combination. And with that, he doesn't care about extraction.
A couple different personal stories came up for me that I think were really compelling. And Dr. Davis was talking about, in Jamaica, her father was a sugarcane farmer. And, she was talking about the impacts of, seasons changing and, the wet seasons and the dry seasons and, when you harvest sugarcane. And I think that, really contributed to how, Dr. Davis, viewed climate change. And same thing with Kim Kokanaki's, she said, she used to spend summers in Alaska, and then she saw a picture of this glacier that she hadn't seen in 40 years, and that it was totally different looking, but she could still recognize it from the rock outcroppings. But it's just exactly what Chasing Ice was saying, right? People aren't going to be motivated by seeing graphs. And I think that's really important. And I mean, obviously Wolfgang Bauer as a scientist, he's motivated by science. And, I think to him, the graphs maybe say something different than they say to,
right.
most people.
Not everyone loves science, so it can only go so far. Different things will hit different people.
Generally, across the board, there was a lot of people saying that there's not just one simple solution that's going to address this, and I think a lot of us can relate to that, especially with all the people we've talked to in this past class. But a lot of people are saying we're gonna need a lot of things from top down to bottom up and everything in between to do a lot of different projects to address climate change.
This kind of leaves me with less hope, kind of, almost, because it's everyone, it seems there are a lot of people know what needs to be done. People are talking about renewable energy technologies, people are talking about carbon tax, people are talking about recycling, people are talking about conserving energy and all of these things that it's going to take, but still there are all these things that seem almost insurmountable. We know climate change is going to displace all these people, right, that are living in coastal areas, that are living in the tropics, and one thing that Satish was saying is if we could systematically migrate these people to somewhere else, it would relieve a lot of the tragedy that we look and see this is going to happen. Even if low estimates of sea level rising happen, we know millions of people are going to be displaced or dead. And so I asked, I asked him, okay, so is anyone trying to systematically figure out a way to migrate these people somewhere? And he said no. It's just we know we need to do these things, but we won't, because he said there are winners and losers with climate change. With winners, you have U.S., Canada, Russia, places that are going to benefit from the climate changing, developed countries. Places that are not going to benefit, that are going to lose, people are going to die or be forced to like relocate, or like lower developed countries. And he was saying like, you know, the United States has a responsibility to like help these lower developed countries. For me personally, it's just kind of like, okay, so now like moving forward, how do we like learn to live in this world that we anticipate, you know? Or you can also look at it as, how do we learn to live in the world that we envision? And like, we really, really have to start making like sacrifices.
It sounds pretty overwhelming, but there definitely is still a lot that we can do, you know? I mean, the world's still going now. Like, what can we do to try to address this? Like, what can we do as individuals that's more than just like flicking off the lights?
I guess I knew what climate change was in high school. I can't even remember before like coming here like what my views on all this were. I had no idea like that energy extraction was such a problem, that like energy was so dirty like in every stage of its life, at least fossil fuels. And I just like coming to this campus and like realizing we had the largest on-campus power plant and it was burning mostly coal at the time, and like all the terrible things that are associated with burning coal and using coal. And then there was this group of people that were like, yeah, it's messed up, but like MSU can do better and we're gonna do something about it. And that was MSU Greenpeace, and it just like gave me a lot of hope. Like I did a lot of things that like, you know, in the grand scheme of things did nothing to like mitigate climate change per se, but like took steps to like get more people knowledgeable and like caring about the issue and like doing something about it. It's not just like, oh, MSU can transition to 100% clean energy. It's like universities are this like symbol of like, I don't know, knowledge, of like learning, of growth, of just like all of these things, and like they can do so much. They have like global reach. Like MSU works like globally. And so it's like, if you're that type of institution, you have a responsibility to do this. And like as students at that university, like we have a responsibility to push you to do it. I just like gained a sense of my own power from like being involved with that group and like, you know, knowing that there is something that I can do to like push this whole thing forward.
In high school, I don't remember I mean, I know I cared, but I didn't know half the stuff that I know about it now. And then coming here, like, I've always loved the environment for as long as I can remember, but becoming part of Greenpeace and taking this class and just learning so much more about every step has made it my passion. And I'm about to start mentoring high school students to try to get them to be where I am earlier in their life so that they can do more than I am.
Kind of similar, like in high school I didn't know much about it, came to college, met some really like inspiring people who wanted to do something about it in our own community right here. I think what has gotten me more has been through being like plugged in with like stuff going on campus. I've known a lot more about things going on the national level, or been able to have some like really amazing experience going to different protests around, even in Lansing and a couple in like Washington D.C. And I think like just being there and looking around and seeing probably like 50,000 people sometimes, or even like in Lansing seeing like a couple dozen people, and I think like being there, hearing them, seeing the signs they make, talking to them, even seeing some people, like seeing some people approaching decision makers, like one-on-one, it's just been really inspiring. And I feel like I've kind of, by being there, kind of like made a promise that I'll definitely stay committed to this, because we're all there from the same reason. We all think it's so important, and we all kind of make a promise to each other whenever we see each other at those events. And I know that there's so many other people fighting for this, and so many other people that want this change. Thanks for tuning into
Global Village.
Global Village.
Global Village. Catch you on the next episode.